guys, and welcome back to another video. Today I will be doing my May wrap-up. I totally forgot what month we're in right now. I am filming this a little early. I normally wait till after the beginning of the new month to film, but I will be out of town. I'd rather just go ahead and get this up now, because it's going up, Monday when you see this. So I want to edit it because I'm going to be out of town during the weekend. My parents and I are going to Austin. We're getting our license for three-wheelers, and since a lot of states don't differentiate, I'm not saying that word right, but we're gonna go with it, between motorcycles and three-wheelers, technically I'll have a motorcycles license by the end of the weekend. So it's gonna be freaking awesome. So that's why I was like, I need to get this done and edited so I can schedule it to upload before I leave Friday. Also, I look like a fucking pincushion because I had to go to the doctors and get some blood work done, and I have shitty veins. And just going this morning reminded me why I never donate blood or anything, because I went in, first off I couldn't find a vein, and I was like, I drank water before I even left. She helped with that, and yeah, and I don't really drink soda, I really only drink water mostly, and yeah, they couldn't find a vein. They stuck me twice on this side, couldn't actually get one here, and then had a dribble in this one. She had to bring in another nurse to do that, and then they had to bring in a third nurse to finally get this side to work, and I am in so much pain. Anyways, enough about me ranting about my life. Let's jump into this. So for this month I DNF'd 2 books. Sorry, this video was interrupted by my dad making me a drink. It's great to be 21, let me just tell you. As I was saying, I read 10 things this month, which I'm super proud of myself because it's been a while since I've read that much in a month. Granted, one of them is a graphic novel and then 4 of them are manga volumes, but I mean, it still counts, right? And I'm also currently in the middle of 5 books. I'm obviously going to start off with the 2 books I DNF'd. So the first book I DNF'd was Take Me There by Caroline D. I've been reading this for about a month, and if you remember in whatever wrap-up it was that I started reading this, I will link it up here if I can figure out which one it is. It has to have been April, I think, is when I started reading this. I was really enjoying it, but also at the same time I was really in the mood for a trashy YA contemporary, and that's kind of what this is. But going into reading this, it was more than just a trashy romance, and I was, but it had that aspect in it, and I was there for that. And then I put it down to read my class books and stuff and didn't touch it, and once I picked it back up I was no longer in the mood to read trashy YA, so then I didn't like it as much. This book, essentially, from as far as I read, is about our main character Dylan, who lives in California with his mom and finds out that his dad is in jail on death row and decides to take a trip from California to Texas, which I was like, yes. If you remember in my other wrap-ups, I was like, that's one thing that really got me excited when I noticed what it was reading this. It was really cool at first. I liked the idea of the road trip. There was a side romance. There's poems and letters scattered throughout with that Dylan's dad wrote, and it was really interesting and I liked it. But I have to say, when I went back and started reading it after I'd put it down for a couple of weeks, I was not into it. It's told in present tense, which got really annoying after a while, and I couldn't do it. The romance was just bleh. And honestly, I feel like it just took away from the story, because this story is essentially told in 2 story strands, which is not a problem. I've read plenty of books that have separate story strands, and I normally tend to like them. But for this one, we have the present, where he is doing the road trip and in Texas, and then we have a past before he left, when he got in trouble with some gang members and he was kind of in this relationship with this girl, and just flipping between the 2 times was really confusing for me, and I just felt like the love interest plot line was just it didn't need to be there. I much rather would have just focused on the kid and his dad and trying to kind of connect with his dad before he dies and all of that crap. So I DNF'd it because I was just I can't stand this writing style anymore. The tense was too much for me. I read 166 pages. And the next book I DNF'd was The Kindness of Enemies by Lila Abuela, something like that. This was a class read that I didn't finish in time, but I was still interested in continuing on. It takes place during the Caucasus Wars, which is, I think, 1840s? 1850s. This is told in two story strands. We have one in 2010 with a professor who is Muslim. She studies the Arabs from the Caucasus era, and one of her students gets in trouble for terrorism, and so that, and then the other story strand takes place during the 1850s during the Caucasus Wars, where we follow Shamil's son, who was kidnapped by the Russians and kind of forced to be a Russian, and Shamil and the Arabs trying to reclaim their land and get Shamil's son back. I personally did not care for the modern timeline. I was like, I kind of see how this is supposed to parallel to what happened, but at the same time I much rather would have just read the historical fiction plot line because I liked it a lot more, and I was planning on going back and finishing it because I read like over 200 pages. Like, I don't think I was that far from the end, but just where I'm sitting right now, I'm like, I really don't want to go back and start reading it again. I have other books I'm in the middle of that I need to finish. It's also summer, and I would kind of like to cut down on my TBR and not be stuck reading a book that I was supposed to read for class. Maybe one day I will go back because it was really interesting, but as of right now, I'm gonna DNF it. Now on to the books that I finished this month. So first, I read Saga Volume 2 by Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples. I am slowly making my way through rereading this so I can get caught up. I am 2 issues behind, I believe, and I just recently bought issue 7, so I'm trying to get caught up. Again, this was a reread, so it was obviously still 5 stars. This, if you don't know because you've been living under a rock, is essentially like Romeo and Juliet in space, is like a great way to explain it. We follow our 2 main characters who are from warring planets. They fall in love, they have a baby. They have a bunch of people sent after them to try to kill them and their baby from both sides of the war. And I just really love this. I have to say though, if you're going to read this, this does deal with adult content, so be warned. But I honestly really enjoy this. The second book I finished was The Complete Persepolis by Marjane Satrapi. This is a required read. I have to read for my World Lit class I'm currently in right now. It ends this weekend and I still have a massive paper I need to write for it. I hate myself. I have to say I really did enjoy this overall. Like, I have like heard people talk about this because originally I think this is 4 different short graphic novels, but this one's like complete bind up and it was so good. Essentially, it's a memoir type of graphic novel about Marjane's life. She grew up in revolutionary Iran, and so we follow her from a girl up into an adult and like dealing with the war, being sent away to go to school, and then coming back and just like all of that stuff. I really, really love this. I highly recommend everybody read this. It is nonfiction, but like it's told in a graphic novel format. Like, how can you not want to read this? So I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. It really changed my view because this is a time period I really don't know much about, and just the devastation that partially goes on in this story, it hurts. And like I said, I just think everybody should freaking read this book. The next book I finished was The Burning Maze by Rick Riordan. I actually have a book talk up over this that I will link up here for you guys if you want to go check it out. It is literally just me rambling for like 17 straight minutes, but it's whatever. So this is the 3rd book in the Apollo Trials series by Rick Riordan. I was very, very much impressed with this book compared to the previous 2 installments of the series. I was okay with The Hidden Oracle. I did not like The Dark Prophecy. This one really redeemed the series for me, and so I'm excited to see what's going to happen in the final 2 books of the series. This is definitely the turning point for our characters. There's more stakes at play, and shit's just gonna go down from here. Let's be real. I absolutely love this. I highly, highly recommend you read this if you've read the previous 2 novels in this series. I know a lot of people were disappointed with The Dark Prophecy. I know I was, but this book really just kicked things up a notch and made me like excited for this series once again. I believe I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. The next book that I finished was Illuminae by J. Kristoff and Amy Kaufman. I've had this book for 3 years now, I think, at this point. And I bought it when it first came out and it was all hyped up, and I was like, I want that. It's science fiction. It's told in mixed media format. Like, I just freaking want it. So I finally got around to reading this, and part of the reason I was really putting this off is because a lot of people said that you should listen to the audiobook while you read, because the audiobook is full cast and it's amazing. I did listen to this majority on audiobook. I think I read about the last 100 pages in physical form because my loan on the audiobook was up, but I still loved it. It didn't take anything away from me. I would recommend, though, if you're going to listen to the audiobook, you should probably read along with it, because there were some things I had to go back and like look at because it just described it in the audiobook, but I didn't know what it actually looked like. So it was cool getting to see that. This is one of those series that either everybody like loves it or people are just like about. And I know a lot of the criticism that comes from the people that are just like it's because they couldn't connect with the characters. And I feel like it was because of the format in which this is told. We're not in anybody's inner monologue. It's literally told through chats and different documents about this event that happened. And I have to say, I can see where they did that, but listening to the audiobook and like really getting a feel for the characters and like what they were going through, that allowed me to connect to the characters better, because I don't think I would have connected to them very well had I just physically read this all. But like listening to the audiobook really helps me like get into the headspace with like Katie and connect with Katie and Ezra. So I would highly recommend listening and reading this if you want to pick it up, because I feel like that's the best way to still connect with the characters and still get all of the awesome stuff going on. I rated this 5 out of 5 stars. I cannot wait to pick up Gemina and get to Obsidio, because this was just so cool. Next, I finished The Astonishing Color of After by Emily X. R. Pan. This is a magical realism novel about our main character, whose mother commits suicide, and she believes her mother was turned into this bird, and she takes a trip to Taiwan to visit her mother's parents, who she's never met in her life, to track down this bird. This was our group pick for the Sabathon that just recently happened, so obviously I had to read it. Going into this, I wasn't sure how I felt, because I wasn't really thinking of picking this book up, but then when we chose it, I was like, well, obviously I have to get it now. And I read it, and I have to say I enjoyed this a lot more than I thought I was going to. It was heart-wrenching and it was emotional, but it was done very well. I haven't read much magical realism, but the way the bird aspect was done in the story, it didn't feel cheesy or corny. Like it felt kind of believable, and I really, really enjoyed it. The other thing I loved about this book is the colors that are integrated into the story in every twist and turn. I really loved that. I think it really added something to it, and honestly I really appreciated it too, because my current work in progress, I am trying to incorporate a lot of color into my portal world, so this was very helpful in that aspect. I think I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. It might have been 5 out of 5 stars. The next book I finished was Every Heart a Doy by Shauna Maguire. I also read this for Sabathon. This is the first book in the Wayward Children's novella series. Literally, they're all under 200 pages. Deals with children who have gone to fantastical portal worlds such as like Wonderland, Narnia, those kind of places, and they are then transported back to the real world and trying to adjust to being in the real world again. There is a murder mystery in this one, and it was just so cool. I loved getting to meet other characters and like learning about their different worlds and their journeys. I really want literally like a novella for like every child, because I just want to know it all. And another thing I really, really loved about this book is our main character, Nancy, is asexual, and I've never read a book with an asexual character, and I just really freaking love that, and I really related to Nancy, like Nancy is me. Like, honestly, if I think about it, if I was like to find a portal world and like go through it, I would probably end up in some kind of underworld. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars instead of 5, just because I felt like the ending was just a little bit rushed for me. But other than that, like, I really love this, and I'm definitely going to be picking up the next 2 books that are already out in the series, like, ASAP. And the final 4 things I read this month actually all go together because they're part of a series. And that is volumes 1 through 4 of My Hero Academia by, I'm going to butcher this, Horikoshi. Yeah, I'm not the best with Japanese names. I really only read these because my sister is getting into manga now, and she read these, and she's also watching the TV show, and so she was like, will you please read these? So I read them. I really enjoyed them. So this series essentially takes place in a superhero society where everybody has, or most people, not everybody, about 80% of the population has a thing called a quirk, which is like a superpower. They're all different things. There's like really cool ones like being able to do explosions and like speed and stuff like that, 0 gravity. And then there's really lame ones like this one guy can just like stretch his fingers. But you know. And we follow our main character, Midoriya, who is quirkless, which means he doesn't have the superpower. And he wants to become a superhero. I rated these first 2 volumes 4 stars because I liked them, but I felt like there's just kind of something missing there. Also, Midoriya is like a fucking crybaby, and I hate it. And then volumes 4 and 5 I rated 5 stars because we really get introduced to shit going on in the superhero school. There's a competition of sorts, stakes are raised, a lot of stuff is going on, and I just thoroughly enjoyed this, and I can't wait for my sister to pick up the next couple of volumes because I really want to read them. I'm going to kind of run through these last couple of books really fast. These are the books I'm currently in the middle of. I'm still in the middle of Map to the Stars by Jen Malone. It's an ebook. It's going to take me forever to get through it, especially now that I'm not in classes because I hate reading ebooks, but it was only available in ebook format, so that's why I'm reading it that way. The other book I am in the middle of is Chevalier by Brie. Oh, I can't even say your last name. It starts with an L, unless I'm looking at it. But she sent me this book to like review, honestly. So I'm also slowly working through that. I also have an ebook version of that, so it's taking me a while to get through. But it's a standalone fantasy. I want to say novella because it's like 150 pages, so it would technically be classified as a novella. And I don't really have thoughts on it yet because I've only read like the first chapter. But other than that, the physical books I'm in the middle of, the first one is The Beauty That Remains by Ashley Woodfolk. I've been reading this since April, and I'm really enjoying it. I'm slowly making my way through it. Like, I'm definitely a lot closer to being done than I was last month. I've kind of been picking this up and putting this down repeatedly. I thought about reading it for Sabathon, but I had started it before Sabathon, so I just haven't picked it up. But I really need to get back to this because I love that this entails a story of 3 different people in Brooklyn, I believe is where we are. And they all have ties to this band, and they all 3 have lost somebody. And it's just a story about them dealing with their grief and coming together through like music and stuff like that. So far, I'm really enjoying it. I love the writing style. I really like the characters. And I personally just really love the author because she's so funny. I love following her on Twitter. Next, I'm in the middle of More Happy Than Not by Adam Silvera. I picked this up for Sabathon. I did not finish it. I am slowly making my way through it. I like it, but like I'm not entirely sure how I feel about this just yet. It's interesting is all I'm gonna say. And the final book I am in the middle of is Arusha and the End of Time by Roshni Chachki. This is the first book in the Pandava Quartet. This is also the first book that Rick Riordan has released in his new imprint. This one deals with Indian mythology. We follow our main character. Aru has awakened this horrible demon on the world, and now she is forced to find the other Pandavas and save the world from this demon, essentially. And I am very much enjoying this. It's very cute. It's got a lot of the aspects that are in Rick Riordan's novels that I love, and yeah. So I can't wait to get around to finishing this one. So that's it for the books that I read in April. If you have read any of these, please let me know your thoughts down in the comments. I would love to talk to you about them. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to see more videos from me. Until then, I will see you guys in my next video. Goodbye!